Felt like I was going on a date with like a robot that was trying to upgrade themselves to the newest iOS version or something. And I was just like, hi everyone, we're back with a new episode. This time it's a long-awaited dating update. Just an update on some men in my life. And one of them, the very last one I will talk about, is one of the most iconic men in my life, my dad. No, I'm not dating my dad. I had this like rough idea of how to intro this video, and now that I just said it out loud, that was not the way to intro this video. Is not clickbait. I am not dating my dad, okay? There's a man in my life that is disappointing me, and one of those people is my dad. But the first two that I'm going to talk about are guys that I'm not very familiar with. I went on dates with them, and you guys love my dating podcast episodes, and so I'm back with some good stories. I had to go on more dates. I went on a lot of dates. It's not that I haven't been on dates since the last episode. I think the last one was a few months ago, which is a pretty long time between my dating episodes. But it's because the men I've been meeting have been pretty boring, and so there isn't anything podcast worthy to talk about. But these two were pretty good. Now that I have like a significant amount to talk about, we're doing an episode. So at the very end of telling my stories, I'll also tell you guys things that I learned so that we can come out of this episode with lessons and being better people. So starting with the first guy. So this guy, I should have asked. One of the things that I realized to start doing is asking whether or not the people that I'm going on dates with have been in New York for a while. And this is significant to me because if they haven't been, then they have a lot of bit of their past hometowns, like culture. And if they're from like a place that might influence them in a way that I'm not really attracted to, that is good to know. So this guy was from SF. I didn't ask him beforehand, but I found out during the date that he had been in SF for so long. And he just barely moved to New York very recently. And so after I found that out, I was like, oh, God damn it. This makes a lot more sense because as he was talking, just the vibe of his like outfit and just his demeanor, I was like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. You seem very SF tech startup kind of guy, which is very common to see in that area. You know, you're close to Silicon Valley, and a lot of the tech industry sits in San Francisco. I was like, oh, well, it's okay. Maybe he's a little different because he moved to New York and that makes him a different breed of SF man. We started talking and he was saying how he got sick and tired of the people in SF. He didn't really feel like he fit in there. And I was like, great, perfect, because I don't want somebody who is from that area because they tend to be, especially if you work in that industry, you just tend to be huge on optimizing everything. It just turns into like my job is my life, and I really don't need that. I don't need someone to tell me how to be more efficient and optimize my life because I already do that for myself enough. I need somebody else that is more supportive and more go with the flow because I need someone to balance me out. And this guy was like, yeah, I just like got sick of it because when I kept going to do these parties and meeting all these people, they just kept being all about work. And I was like, great. I was like, amazing. Then he kept talking more about himself. The irony was crazy. Basically, even though he had a lot to say about other people, he pretty much was the person that he was trying not to be. And so he was telling me like, yeah, I'm doing this work. I'm so excited for it. It raised this much capital. And I was like, okay. I'm like, great, cool. And then he was like, I really like making music on the side. And I was like, oh, that's super cool. But he was like, I really wanted to start making music because I was like, what's a hobby that I can do that I feel like I would never be able to do? And I set all these goals. This is something that I feel like isn't achievable for me. So I really want to challenge myself. So I set this goal to start making music, and I was trying to make like 20 songs, and I was trying to see if I could make music faster, essentially. He was like, and I've been able to get it down to 4 hours a song, and I put my prompt into ChatGPT, and then it spits out the script and stuff, and then I alter it, and he was like, yeah, I'm just trying to like see what I can do and how fast I can do it. I was like, oh no. I was like, this is a little I think I would rather have somebody who appreciates making music for the love of it, not trying to generate it. It was very like robotic to me. I felt like I was going on a date with like a robot that was trying to upgrade themselves to the newest iOS version or something. And I was just like everything is a goal, which is like nothing's wrong with that. And I definitely set a lot of goals, and it's admirable to have something to work towards and be proactive. I'm really attracted to people like that, but I think there's a line where for me personally it's just a little bit too much, and I don't want to feel guilty dating somebody because they are doing it all and doing it super optimized, but I want to take it easy and realize that life is not all about optimizing everything, and sometimes it's okay to do nothing and be lazy and be messy. And I don't think he really does that or allows for that in his life. And that's fine. It's just not what I would want. And so he wasn't a good fit. I ended up turning him down. No ghosting. I talked about this in a few episodes back when I was talking about dating, that I'm an anti-ghoster. I do not want to be ghosted, so I don't ghost other people. I learned my lesson. I haven't always been that way, but now I'm that way. Okay, the next person. Oh, I need to give stats on the other guy. So the first guy, he's, I think, 5'9". I think he's white and Latino. Yeah, he was CS, computer science. Okay, the next person, I really like this guy before I even met him. And that's crazy to say, but it makes sense because he actually voice memoed me before we met in person. So we were voice memoing back and forth. I love voice memos. I think it's really fun to be able to hear someone's voice and their expression when they're saying things. So that was cool. I was attracted to him. 5'10", 11, I would say. He's Indian and he's a musician. He looks like he looks like he's in a band. Like, he looks like really cool from his profile, and he was very extroverted. We also phone called for like hours, which is crazy, before we met in person, and it was just really fun talking to him. And so when we finally met each other, I was keeping my fingers crossed that I wouldn't be catfished physically, because as much as you want to be that kind of person that's like, looks don't matter, that's such a lie. I got 2 eyes and I want to like what I see. That's a huge part of my attraction to somebody. And so as much as I loved his personality, I was hoping that I was also attracted physically to him. So I met up with him at a cafe, and he looked just like he looked in his pictures, so that was good. But so 2 things happened. So we went on a date for 5 hours, which is an insanely long time to go on a date. But the thing is, when we were talking to each other, I felt like there was something off, and I couldn't figure out exactly what it was. But it's fine, because I had so much time to spend with him that I could figure out what was off. And then it hit me that I realized he really resembles one of my friends. It's not just in the way that they look, but their mannerisms. It's like the way that they move their hands, their facial expressions is just uncanny. It's like very, very similar, to the point where I was just like weirded out. And by the time I pinpointed what it was, I just could not unsee it. Everything he would do, I'd be like, oh my God. And I'm really, really close to this one friend. I lived with her. So if there's anybody to recognize her, it's going to be me. And it was just like, oh no. Example, right? My friend, she does this thing whenever she messages on Teams where she does this sound effect, and she does a lot of sound effects in general, and so does the guy, and they're also from the same culture, ethnic background and whatnot. And she was like, beep boop boop boop. That's what she always does when she messages people on Teams. And I'm just like sitting there. We met on a work day, and so he was messaging someone on Teams, and he starts going beep boop boop boop, and I was like, oh no. I was like I'm like, oh no. Oh no. And I was like, shoot. It's like I would be dating my friend. And I love her, but it's just like I would be dating my friend. And so that was a little off. But then I was like, maybe it's okay. Maybe I can get over it. It's fine. Like, let's move on. So I just obviously stayed for a lot longer, 3 more hours. And we went to go get dinner because we had been hanging out for so long. And guys, this is where it really went downhill. We were people watching, one of my favorite things to do, and we were commenting on people's outfits. And I was just like, oh my gosh, I love that girl's outfit. She was wearing jorts and like this t-shirt, and it's very much an outfit I would wear / I've worn before. And the guy was like, oh my God, ew, I hate her outfit. And I was like, dude, I would wear that outfit. And then he was like, if you showed up in that outfit, I would not talk to you. And I was like, okay, well, that sucks because I'm still going to wear whatever I want to wear. And I literally said these things because I'm secure in myself and I don't care. Whatever you say doesn't matter. If I want to dress a certain way, look a certain way, I'm going to do that. And this hasn't always been the case. There's been times when I dated other people that had preferences on what clothes I wore, how short, long my hair was, and I listened to them. So I would never cut my hair because they didn't like it. And I was just like afraid of being insecure, and I was insecure. And so I let other people's judgments of me and their opinions dictate how I lived my life. And now I'm in a place where I could give no fucks. And so everything he was saying was like nonsense to me. And I was like, that's funny. I wonder if he would talk to me if I showed up on the next date wearing jorts. But it doesn't matter because we're not going to test that shit out. We're not going on a second date because of those comments he was making. Not just that, but again, we were just commenting on outfits, and the difference between my comments versus his were very different. I'd be like, I don't love her outfit. It's like pretty basic. I feel like everyone wears that. There's no special style or like special oomph to that outfit. And so I'm like, it's okay. But like, everyone has those days where you're just going all basic, and that's fine. And I was saying things like that. It's very similar to my style podcast episode that I posted a few weeks ago. It's very similar to the things that I was saying. But he was going on another level, and he was like, that's ugly. I hate that. And then he would start commenting on people's faces. This is where I drew the line, and I didn't stand up. Like, I didn't put my foot down, like truly. He saw this one girl walk by, and he was like, oh my God, that girl's fugly. Fugly is fucking ugly. That's what it means. And I was like, oh my God. So I turned to him and I was like, dude, she can't change her face. And it's also a girl. There's so many beauty standards and expectations, and the beauty industry just like puts so much pressure on women to do so many things to change themselves, and not as much for men. And so I feel like making a comment on a woman's looks, especially when you're not a woman yourself, is out of place. It's more out of pocket. It's unwarranted, especially when we weren't even talking about face. And I would never want to talk about that. He said that, and I was just like, she can't change her face. That's so mean. That's what I said. Obviously in that tone, not like, you're an asshole. Like, dude, stop. Like, very firmly putting my foot down. And he was like, what? Like, I'm just saying. Not only is that disrespectful, and I wouldn't want that energy near me, but also I'm not gonna look like the way I am forever. He just happens to be attracted to me now. What happens if I gain weight, if I get old and wrinkly? I'm gonna be afraid to get fat, change, get old and wrinkly, like whatever it is, I'm going to be afraid to look any different than I did that day. And I don't need that pressure. It just happened to be a good time where I felt secure that day. What if I was PMSing and I wasn't feeling secure, which happens like once a month where I just have those days, and he made those comments? That would really get into my head. And I've been in relationships before where the guys had the audacity to say things like that, and it all ended up culminating to an eating disorder. And I don't need that. If I'm being honest with how it actually unfolded, after that date happened, I still was considering a second date, and I really, really wanted to show up in jorts for the second date and give him another chance just to see what he would do. But I think after speaking to a lot of my friends, and my friends really had to point it out to me, they were like, no, no, no. And I've never been on a date before where post date, my friends were a hard no. They were like, red flag, don't go back. I've never had that reaction to any of my dates before. This was the very first time that I've had that reaction. It was an anonymous reaction. They were all like, hell no, you cannot go back. You are literally going to get insecure, and it's going to hurt in the future if you stay with this guy. And they weren't wrong, but it just took me a while to accept that and actually do something about it. And so it was actually a week and a half later. And I mean, I talked to him for a week and a half after this date, voice memoing, calling him. And then I finally was like, okay, I thought about it more, and I actually don't want to go on a date. And I was going to lie about why I didn't want to go on a date, say something like I met somebody else, but I truly think he should know why I did not want to go on a date with him, just to be a girl's girl, man. Like, just so that this guy doesn't continue saying these things, because it's gonna hurt somebody else in the future, and he's not realizing that it's actually really problematic. So there's that. Finally, the most iconic man, my dad. And it's funny that I do an episode about this today because it was resolved as of yesterday. But if I recorded this episode yesterday, before I had this talk with him, I would have had very different opinions. This is post an unexpected call and change of mind, so I'll go over that. But essentially, I have some news. Wait, this is so not the way I wanted to share this, but I guess I'll just do it because it makes the most sense. But I have very exciting news, guys. Like, this is big. This is truly big. I'm not even clickbaiting. I'm not even trying to be dramatic. This is actually big. If you guys have been following me for a while now, for at least 3 years or within the last 3 years, you'll know my job has made me miserable. And I've been in this cycle. Oh, some of you guys already know what's about to happen. I've been in this cycle of misery for a long time. I've had a lot of mental breakdowns. I've filmed those mental breakdowns. I've talked about the stresses. I'm actually doing something about it now. I'm actually leaving my job. I'm leaving my job. I think the next episode that I'm going to film, I will be pretty much out, or my company will know I'm out. I have a specific date. So, June 6th. I'm debating this, so let me know in the comments if you guys are still listening to me. If you guys think that I should do some kind of live stream on YouTube, on Instagram, or something like that, where I send the email and we'll do it together. It'll be like a 5-minute live stream. It's not gonna be a big deal. And it's gonna be all this build up just to send an email. It's gonna be the most important email that I've ever sent. And we can do it together. It would be really fun. And you guys can draft the email with me. Let me know if you guys would go on that. And if not, I'm not going to live stream it, because how cringe would it be for me to be on my own live stream to just leave my job? But that's the big news. And tying it back to the story, I was very dead set on doing this as soon as I was able to come up with a financial plan and work out the logistics for it. I was like, I need to make this decision for myself, because it's going to be really easy for people to convince me otherwise if I don't have a clear plan forward. And obviously, my friends and family are still going to convince me otherwise, because just the nature of leaving a corporate job and what a corporate job entails, which is safety usually and having benefits and all of that. It's very nice. It's why people stay forever in corporate work, even if it's not their favorite thing. And so by the time I was telling everyone, I was like, I'm telling you, I'm not asking you for your opinion. I actually don't even want to know your opinion because I'm going to do it anyway. So either you're on board with me or you're not. I don't care because I'm going to do it anyways. And so it's like, oh shoot, I got to tell my dad. So I called my dad, and the way I delivered it was so bad. It was so nonchalant. I was like, hey dad, like, by the way, I forgot to tell you this, but I'm leaving my job. I'm telling you. Okay, I'm not asking you. And then he lost it. And I was so shocked. Out of all the people that I thought to tell, I did not think he would have that kind of reaction. Which is why I thought it was going to be a nonchalant conversation. That's why I didn't make it a big deal. But he was the only one out of all my friends and family that I've told that had such a rejection to the whole idea. I was just so disappointed in him because the toxic masculinity, the need to be authoritative and in control really came through. And it was just such an immature reaction. I thank God was set in stone on doing this, because I think if I wasn't, I really would have considered not leaving my job. Basically, I told him, and then he was like, Annie, that is not a good idea. I am telling you, I do not think you should do that. Like, why are you doing that? Like, I don't understand. What is there not to like about your job? Like, I don't understand why you need to leave. You know, this is not a light matter. This is not a nothing decision. This is a big deal, okay? You can't make this kind of decision overnight. And I was like, Dad, I was offended because, like, knowing me, especially my dad, knowing me being the worrier, the anxious, the over planner type A person that I am, did he think that I made this decision rashly? Like, did he think I thought in 24 hours, I'm gonna do this shit? Like, peace out, I'm gonna quit my main source of income that allows me to live in New York City to live this expensive lifestyle. Did he think that I was gonna be stupid like that? Apparently, yes. And I was just so shocked that his reaction was to control my life. I know that you're my dad, you're older than me, and you have a lot of opinions and you've gone through more of life, and I would love to hear what you have to say, but I'm not gonna take it. It was coming from nowhere. Like, he didn't even ask me what my plan was. He didn't even want to hear me out. It was just straight up like, no, you're not gonna do this. That night, I really tried to not let it bother me, but I'd be a liar if I said it didn't bother me, because it broke my heart that he wasn't supportive of me and my mental health. I remember sitting in my bed. I didn't know who to call. Like, I was like, who do I call? I need someone to talk to. I need to let it out. And this is really where it was super sad, where I was sitting in my bedroom. It was like 11 p.m. at night. And I was thinking to myself, I have nobody to call. I know you guys are probably listening to this, and some of my friends might be listening to this, and they're like, you could have called me, or why didn't you call your friends? But here's the reason, right? I read something from this book right here. This is the book, actually, Artist's Way. Highly recommend it. I'm not going to go too much into detail, but basically I read a part of this book where it specifies the difference between supporters and nurturers. So these are people that you should surround yourself with, and more so, you should surround yourself with nurturers, not supporters. And so a supporter is somebody who wants you to do well, but in their way. If you don't make decisions based on what they would do or what they would recommend, they're not very supportive of it. And they try to tell you to do otherwise or tell you what they would do. And then there's a nurturer, and a nurturer hears you out and hears where you're coming from, but believes in you as a person. So when you do make a decision, whether or not they support it or not, and whether or not they would do it themselves or not, they still support you and back you because they know the type of person you are and they see your potential. So regardless of the path that you decide to take, it's all good to them. And I think that's what I'm looking for. And I know that's what I'm looking for. And so I was trying to think about all the people in my life, and I was like, who fits that criteria? Because that is who I need to call. And then I was like, I actually don't know for sure. And I didn't want to take that risk because I was in such a fragile state that I was worried that calling anybody in that moment would have really messed me up and really gotten in my head. I don't need anybody who puts any more doubt in my head or even supports my dad at all. And I cannot guarantee any of the people in my life will nurture me. And so what I ended up doing was, and this is perfect because I brought him up, 5-hour date guy that had a lot of opinions about women's faces. He's the only one I messaged. I sent him a voice memo and I prefaced in the beginning because I was like, I think he'd be the best person because he is really passionate about doing other things outside of his job and he has a very creative mind. And so I sent him a voice memo and I was like, before you say anything to me, I want you to be really careful about how you say it because I'm really fragile right now. Thank God I sent that and he didn't respond that night. He actually responded 2 days later, which is good because then I just handle it by myself. It left a bad taste in my mouth for the relationship I had with my dad. Even more so when I thought he was going to be my number one nurturer. If he hadn't given me that speech and yelled at me in that phone call, I would have called him if somebody else had done that to me. Because when I was little and I grew up talking a lot to him and being a big dreamer around him and telling my big life plans, he was super supportive. It's one of like the main memories, core memories I've had when I was little. And I always thought he would be the one that would believe in me no matter what I did. In practice, it showed me otherwise. And I was like, damn, my childhood is being crushed in front of me. My childhood was not as romantic as I painted it out to be because that was one of my most favorite childhood memories, to the point where I literally have a tattoo commemorating that aspect of my childhood. But it was a lie. And so it was huge. Talked about it in therapy, so I was good. I was like, you know what? I'm not going to cut ties with my dad because he has his opinions and he's a flawed human being. And there's a reason why he has those opinions. He grew up the way he did and went through what he went through. It doesn't justify what he has to say and he shouldn't have done those things. But I understand where he's coming from. It just happens to be that now, when it comes to making these decisions and having these conversations, he is not the person for me to go to. And I was like, okay, noted. Move on. Sad, but whatever. I'd rather know than live a lie. That's a perfect segue to the things that I learned from these 3 men. It's better to know than live a lie. So if you can get as much information as possible, as soon as possible, that is ideal. That's what you're doing on these dates. It's like really gathering all the information you can about these men, women, whatever sex you prefer, putting them in different situations with you and seeing how you guys do. You don't want to wait like I did after like 20-ish years to find out that in practice, some of these people just start speaking, seeming like they're going to do certain things, but in practice, they're a completely different person and that will crush you. But it's all better, I want to say that, before I keep going on about the lessons that I learned. So last night, he changed his mind. Last night, he was like, are you actually going to quit your job? I was like, yes. Do you think I was joking around when I called you? It was an April Fool's. And he was like, you know what? I support you. I got your back. Huh? Like, I was like, can you just say that again? Like, what did you say? And he was like, you know what? I wouldn't have done and wouldn't do what you're doing. And I realized I shouldn't have said what I said to you because I wouldn't have done that. But you have your own life. And I need to remember that you are an adult now and you can make your own decisions and go on your own journey. And it's not going to be right or wrong. You're just choosing another path. And I need to support you. And so I got your back. Here's a rule I'm going to make. I'm not going to blame you. I'm not going to blame on anybody because it's just your journey. Whether or not you go on this path or XYZ thing happens, it is not a good thing or a bad thing what happens to you next. It's just your journey. And I got your back. Don't worry. I'm not even emotional about it because I was just like, it's fine if you can't support me. I'd rather know. I'd rather not live a lie. That's fine. and I'm very self-sufficient and I'm good with taking care of myself. I got my own back. But hearing him support me again, I'm like, I'm so confused, but thank God. But anyways, moving on. Other things that I learned about these interactions with these men. I think whenever you have no disagreement with somebody and you can see that they're coming from an emotional standpoint, you should always step away. If you can clearly tell what's happening is very emotional, you should step away but agree to come back. Because I think that no conversation, no logical conversation, no actual conversation can be had if you're coming from an emotional standpoint, because all that's happening is you are just so overwhelmed and clouded by emotions that you cannot even hear the other person and hear where they're coming from. Let people come around. Some people need more time to process things, and if they come around, let them come around. But if they're not going to stay for the ride, guys, just move on. It's not worth it. Do your own thing. Life's too short, man. You know, they could be gone. They could be gone next week and you could have made a completely different life decision because of them, but they're gone and it doesn't matter when they're gone. And I've talked about this before, but it's way easier to move on from people that you meet in your life and date experimentally and to learn from people when you go into the dating scene knowing exactly what you want. In an ideal world, you know what the other person wants too, so that you're not wasting your time, but you get a lot of the job done when you take care of what you want from dating and what you want from a relationship, period. And it makes things way easier. And so being with the San Francisco guy and then being with the cafe guy, I came into it, okay, like this guy really loves optimizing and all this stuff, but I knew that objectively there isn't anything wrong with him, but we're just misaligned, because what I want is somebody who is my companion and who wants to go through life and have fun and pulls me out of that work mindset and that type A mindset. But then also the other guy, he was a lot more difficult to let go because we had a lot in common in terms of life goals. And he pretty much was what I wanted in terms of somebody who I could see nurturing me, supporting me creatively, and really taking care of me like I would want in a partner. And that's why it made it difficult for me to let him go, because I hadn't thought about somebody who would be not so shallow. I think I've like skipped over the surface level things, and I was like, wow, and at a deeper level, we would really do well together. And I could see him going through the craziness of life with me and we would still end up being okay. But he's an asshole for making these comments that I needed to remember also matter. Knowing what I wanted going into meeting these people and all the people I've met in the past year or so, it's been really helpful. It's easy for me to move on from somebody and not hang on tight to them. And it's also easy for me to parse out who I actually want, because actually there's a lot of guys out there and just a lot of people out there that you could date easily. The question is whether or not they're a good fit and whether or not they'd actually add more to your life as opposed to hurt it and take things away from your life. Anyways, now on to the high-low buffalo. High is the good thing that has happened in the past few weeks. Low is the bad thing, and buffalo is the weird thing that has happened. Has nothing to do with the episode. I just love doing these updates, and I love hearing your guys' updates. So feel free to leave your high-low buffalo in the comments below. Yeah, so starting with the high, I remembered that I had a long weekend, very last minute last week. I did not even realize there was a long weekend. I didn't know there was Memorial Day weekend this past weekend because I'm so disoriented and I don't know what's coming next. And that is one of the best feelings ever, guys. To know that you have a long weekend when you didn't expect it. It was amazing. I loved it so much. It was the best surprise ever. And there's been times where I didn't realize I had the day off and I turned on my computer and then I started messaging people and then they were like, dude, it's a holiday. And I was like, sick. I was like, peace out. I'm going. The low that I had is I think I'm losing my mind because there's too much going on in my head. Prepping for leaving this job has been huge. It is very exciting, but it's also logistically a lot. And so I'm dealing with a lot in my mind right now. And it's really showing because this past weekend, here's all the things I got wrong this past weekend. So first off, I thought I had plans this Saturday, fully got ready, texted my friend, was like, I'm on my way, I'll be there at this time. And she was like, we were talking about the other Saturday. And I was like, fuck. I should have known that. That was completely my fault because she texted and said, can't do this weekend because my friend's visiting. Let's do the next. And I was like, yeah. And then I put it in my calendar as this Saturday. And so I got it wrong, even though I got ready and everything. It was fine. I turned around, didn't even make it to the station. It was fine. I had a free day off. It wasn't a big deal, but I was like, I'm a mess. The other thing is I planned a picnic with my friends for Monday. We ordered takeout ahead of time, or I ordered takeout ahead of time for that Monday picnic. And then Saturday morning, I was like, wait, did I schedule that right? Check the time for when I was going to pick up the takeout. I actually scheduled it for that Saturday, not for Monday. And so I got it completely wrong. And I was like, oh my God, I have a $70 order under my name for pickup on a Saturday when it's supposed to be for Monday. So I had to run out of my apartment to go to the store in person and be like, will you guys please change my order? Because I ordered so many bagels. I just ordered so much stuff. Can I please have it on Monday, not today? Because I don't know what to do with all these bagels. And thank God they didn't prep it yet. And they were so nice enough to be like, yeah, it's all good. Don't worry about it. We're not going to make you order another set of bagels. You're good. The last thing, I got into a contract for this freelance project that was also due on Saturday night, and I signed it and agreed to the terms with my client last week, so a whole week before the Saturday. And I was like, okay, let's do Saturday, whatever. Did a lot of other stuff in my life, and so I was preoccupied, and then completely forgot that whole contract happened, that it was due on Saturday. Saturday morning, I kid you not, guys, I'm not even exaggerating, no alarm. I woke up 9 a.m., shot out of my bed, like literally fully went from 180 degrees to 90. And I was like, oh my God, I have a freelance project due tonight in less than 12 hours. And I haven't done jack shit for that. And I was like, I completely dropped the ball. Like, I didn't even think about it. Like, it hasn't even crossed my mind until now. Thank God my subconscious stored that somewhere deep, deep, dark down, because, yeah, I would not have turned it in. Wow. I finished it, worked on it really fast. It was stressful, but I am so glad I remembered morning of. Imagine me remembering, like, 2 hours before the day was over. That would have been terrible. Yeah, and so I was like, shit. I was like, I'm really a mess. I really have so much going on. I could not order things correctly. Yeah, it's too much. And that's a bad sign. I think when it physically translates into something else, that's when I know something's got to change. My buffalo. And I already pretty much touched on it, but the weird thing is leaving your job when you hate your job so much, so you would think is a very exciting thing. And it's so funny. I feel kind of awkward. The first thing people ask me after I tell them that I'm going to leave my job is, how do you feel about it? And I don't want to be a Debbie Downer because they all know I've been waiting for this moment and they're all really happy for me, which is very nice to know. But if I'm being real, it's scary. It's exciting and really happy, but it's scary. I have days where I wake up and I'm like, am I doing the right thing? What if this happens? So where I like spiral and imagine all these scenarios of what if I can't afford rent? What if I have to go back to California? What if I want to go on vacation, but I'm so anxious on vacation because I don't know if I can afford the vacation, because now I'm not making money while I'm on vacation. There's no PTO, paid time off. And so if I'm on vacation, I'm on vacation. There's no money coming into that bank. It's all leaving. At least now when I'm on vacation, I'm like maybe breaking even or still making money. So there's that anxiety. And so I have days where I'm just like, what am I doing? Where I am almost able to romanticize having that job, and I kind of forget what it was like to be in that toxic environment where I'm like, oh, it wasn't that bad. Like, it's fine. Like, are you sure you really want to leave? And then I have other days where I'm like, yeah, I'm so sure I'm going to leave. I never want to be there again. And I'm so excited. And so it really depends on the day. And so that is the truth. It is a weird, weird thing. And I don't mean to be Debbie Downer, but it's honestly the truth. It's scary and risky. It's not rainbows and sunshine to be doing something so fulfilling and creative. But yeah, that is my I Love Buffalo. Thank you guys so much for listening. Let me know what's going on in your life. I appreciate all the updates. All of the sponsored ads that are going to be placed in these episodes, the proceeds are going to go to charity. I made a promise. And so by supporting my podcast, supporting my videos, you are inherently using your time for entertainment, but also to go to a good cause. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, rate the podcast if you haven't. If you're not following this podcast, either on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, what are you doing? What are you doing? You need to get that fixed. You need to do that right now. And then I'll see you guys next time. Bye.